Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. Today I am here with this Datsun 1500 ute, and you may have seen a previous video which I did on this ute where I started it up for the first time in 20 years. Closer look. Wow, she's pretty dusty. But wow, this is rough. Question is, will the engine run after so many years? Will it actually run or not? Oh, look at that. That's 20 years worth of dirt coming off of this thing. Oh yeah. Oh well, so it's definitely not seized. Alright. Stand back. Oh, it wants to run. 20 years. Now, I made the comment in that video that if it got over 1,000 likes, that I would come back and I would actually get this ute to the condition where I would drive it for the first time in over 20 years. Now, funnily enough, as I was going through and looking at some of the comments that have been made, you know, people were really upset at the way we treated this ute. They were upset that we hadn't done an oil change. They were upset, you know, just with the way we were revving it. They were upset with the way we were pouring petrol down the carburetor during that video. But I must say, the funniest comment of all was, these guys sure know how to flog a dead horse. Anyway, I want to give this ute some love, because clearly, I mean, look at this vehicle. I mean, it clearly needs some love. I mean, look at it. It's in absolute pristine condition, can't you tell? I mean, this is a restorer's delight, this ute. I mean, wow. You know, we really do need to look after this. No flogging a dead horse here, folks. And yeah, anyway, now folks, I am taking those comments seriously, and people are complaining that I haven't done a oil change. So today we're going to see what 20-year-old, maybe it's probably 25-year-old oil actually looks like when it comes out. We're going to swap the oil in this engine. Well, let's get into it. Look, got some super price oil, got a SCA filter. Let's get that on, let's get the oil out, and let's get into it, folks. All right, folks, so we've got the front end up on a couple of bricks and got the shifter on the drain plug, and we've got a drain pan in there. So let's get this drain plug out and let's have a look what this oil looks like. Now, this oil is at least 20 years old. I'm gonna suggest though that it could be like 25 years old, because you can clearly see that this ute was loved by the previous owner and really well looked after. Not. Okay, here we go. 20-year-old oil. Well, she's black. I thought it might have been a little bit like a milkshake, but she's nice and black. Actually looks quite clean coming out, to be honest. Don't know why all those comments from everyone saying should change oil. But anyway, we're doing it anyway. Fresh oil is going to go in. So we'll just let that drain. And we might just get the filter off now. Now that filter is on there very tight and I can't get it off by hand, and I don't actually have a strap to remove it. I've also noticed that the filter that I have bought is actually shorter than the filter that's on there. Now, it probably's got the same thread, but I don't want to risk putting a screwdriver through the old one to get it off, you know, with the old bush mechanic trick, and then the new one not actually fitting. So for now, we'll leave the old filter on, but we'll get the engine topped back up with new oil. First of all, we'll chuck the drain plug back in, and we'll take it from there. Once we've actually had it running for a bit, we'll do another oil change, because you really should change the oil when it's hot, and we'll chuck a new filter on it then. All right, so you can see it stopped dripping there. So we'll grab the sump plug and we'll chuck that back in now. Oh yeah, some nice clean oil going in the Datto, because, you know, we have to really give this ute some love. Give it the love that it deserves, folks. All right, so I just tipped all of that oil in, and let's have a look at the dipstick, just check. Oh, look how clean that looks. And you can see it's up over the high mark, so all good there. So, assuming that you saw the first start in 20 years, you would have seen that whilst we got the ute running, there was fuel coming out of the front of the carburetor, and it was running a bit rough. So, instead of replacing the seals and gaskets in the carburetor, which has sat for 20 years, I managed to pick up this carburetor from Max Speeding Rods for literally, it's $100 delivered to your door. So why would you stuff around with the old carburetor when you can put a brand new carburetor on? So let's get the old carburetor off and let's get this carburetor on, and let's get this ute running. Now, I have actually just realized that I've got one slight problem, and that's that I don't have a new gasket to go between the carburetor and the inlet manifold. So we're gonna have to think about that, and we're gonna have to get that problem solved, but I'm pretty sure we can find a solution to that problem. All right, folks, so as you saw, I've got a problem with the carburetor that I don't have a gasket. So we're gonna have to make a gasket, and this is where Beer's gonna come to the rescue. Because I'm at the gasket, add a bit of the cardboard of a Cooper's 6-pack. So as you can see, we've already knocked into a few of these. Don't want to be too wasteful with the material now, just in case we need to make another one. Now, what we want to do is to make a little imprint. So just tap with the hammer. All right, so as you can see, that gentle tapping with the hammer on the surface of the carburetor has made a nice template of what I need to now cut out with the Stanley knife. So we've got a nice homemade gasket for the carburetor. There we go. Homemade gasket for the carburetor. So there we go, folks. Beers comes to the rescue today with a homemade gasket for our carburetor. All right, folks, so as you can see, I've got 3 of the nuts loosened off really well to get the carburetor off. This one in here and these 2 over here, which are really easy to get to. But I'm really struggling to get to the nut at the back. So what I'm going to do now, there's a little screw right down in here, which you can remove all of this assembly. Hopefully that's going to give me access. You can see it just in there now. Hopefully that's going to give me access to that last bolt to get the carburetor off. There we go. Hopefully now, yep, that assembly will come off. And hopefully that will give us just enough room to get into that last nut. Now, gee, this back nut, getting this carburetor off is annoying, but I'm slowly getting there. All right, so finally I'm there. I've removed the carburetor from the inlet manifold there, and we can see that, knowing my luck, I've had to screw that front bolt out. The whole bolt has come out of the inlet manifold. Doesn't matter, we'll get that out, get off, get the bolt back into the manifold. So we'll get this carburetor all off, and then we will get the new one installed. All right, so finally got that stud out there. That fought me the whole way getting that out, but we'll get that back into the inlet manifold where it's meant to be, and we'll get on with the job. All right, so we've got that stud back into the inlet manifold there. What I did was I locked 2 of the nuts together on top of that stud, and then I was able to use a socket and screw that in. Now, whilst I went to the effort this morning of tapping out that cardboard gasket, because I didn't have a gasket, you can see this carburetor has come off, and there's not actually a cardboard gasket there. There's a gasket of some sorts, but it feels, I don't know, it feels like metal, and it's in really good condition. So I'm not actually going to use that cardboard gasket that I made this morning. I'm just going to leave this one in because it's in good condition, and we'll get the new carburetor installed onto that. But nonetheless, I'll show you that footage this morning because I think it's good for people to know how to make a cardboard gasket when you're in trouble with a, let's call it a bush mechanic repair job. All right, folks, so I'm just trying to fit up this new carburetor, and there are some slight differences. I can see that it's not quite fitting down flush. You see, I can't drop the carburetor down onto the inlet manifold there. And that's because the vacuum advance for the distributor is in a slightly different position on this carburetor. If we come back to the original carburetor, we can see the vacuum advance actually sits higher on the carburetor. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do about that, but I'll have a think about that. And I've noticed one other difference with the carburetor, and that is this old carburetor had some sort of a, I'm going to call it a vacuum that came off the inlet manifold, which came around to this little diaphragm here. Now the new carburetor doesn't have that. Now looking at the carburetor, it does look on the original like it's just some sort of mechanism onto the idle speed. So for now, I'm going to assume that doesn't matter. If we can get the carburetor on, I think we can give it a go and just not connect this hose. So let's have a look at the interference that's occurring on the vacuum advance for the timing. And let's see if we can work out a solution on how to get the new carburetor dropped into place. All right, so I can already hear the comments, but I'm wondering if I can just tap it cover in a bit to make the clearance required. Oh, it's close. I'm just gonna give it a bit more of a tap. Like I said, I can already hear the screams. I can already hear the screams in the comments about not giving the Datsun 1500 ute the love that it deserves. But we've got a job to do here. We want to drive this thing. We want to drive it for the first time in 20 years. There we go. So you can see that's dropped down nicely. What I'm going to do is just pull that off. We'll clear the muck out. Now, fortunately, since I ran that nut up and down that stud a couple of times off camera, I'm actually able to thread it pretty much all the way down to the base plate by finger. So that's certainly going to help me. And now I'll be able to get the other 3 nuts on, and then we'll get it all tightened up. So there you go. You fought me all the way, folks. But now we've got the new max speeding rod carburetor mounted up to the Datsun 1500 ute. Still got to connect up the cables and all of the vacuum tubes, except for, as I talked about this before, this vacuum tube there. And we've got to get some fuel line. Who knows if it's going to suck fuel through from the tank or not, but until we get there, we won't know. So let's see if we can get the accelerator cable mounted up to start with. There we go. Got that mounted up. So we'll get the Phillips head onto there and get that bracket done up there. All right, then let's get the choke. Yep, that's the choke. Get the choke mounted up. All right, so we've got the accelerator cable, the choke. Now, this is gonna be, you can see that goes down to the distributor. So this is going to be a vacuum advance for the distributor. So we'll just push that on there. So we've got that. And the last thing we're going to have to sort out is some sort of a fuel line. Now, folks, I'm wondering whether I can rig up some sort of a temporary fuel tank, just gravity fed. Got this barb fitting. Can I rig up a temporary fuel tank just to see that we get this engine actually running? And then we'll work out what's going on with the fuel pump and everything else. So let's give this a go. So I got this old mineral water bottle, and I reckon if I just drill a pilot hole straight into the cap, I might need to be a bit bigger than that for that barb to screw into. Here we go. Just got it to the right size where we can screw that in. There we go, nice one. So we'll be able to fill the bottle up with petrol, hang it up there, put a fuel line down to the carburetor, and get this thing running. All right, folks, so I've got some fuel here in my temporary fuel tank. We can see she's not leaking, which is awesome. Even gets a bit of air pressure up. That fuel in there. So we'll chuck the fuel line on the end here. Alright, now the question is, got some trusty insulation tape here. Let's see if we can just tie it up. Oh, you'll just strap it onto the hood rod. So folks, we got our temporary fuel tank rigged up, got our new carby on. Question is, will she run? Interestingly, you can see with that fuel tank and with that clear fuel bowl, that is one of the advantages of these. You can see the fuel has already siphoned into the fuel bowl, so there's going to be no need to put fuel down the top of the carburetor. Flood the spark plugs, as some of the people have made in the comments on the original video of starting up this ute for the first time in 20 years. So I do have a few other problems, which I'll just bring your attention to. We've kind of got a heater hose that's massively cracked, so I've got to sort that out. What I'm going to do with that, you can see the other end of the heater hose down there. She's pretty perished, so I've got to work out a solution to that. Might even do that before we start her up. So, been into the town and managed to pick up these end caps for the heater hose. So I got a couple of different sizes because I wasn't quite sure what size the heater hose is. I've got a 5/8 and a 3/4. So hopefully one of those works. We'll get some water in and because we're going to give this 1500 ute some love, I might even put some coolant in this thing. There we go, that fitted on quite nicely. So I've slotted the 5/8 one on there. Let's even get that little clamp on if we can. And I reckon this one at the back here would be the other side of the heater hose, so let's get that capped off as well. She's got a bit of a checkered history. It's a different clamp, Phillips head on a different style of clamp at the back here, but who cares? Let's get her off and get it capped off. So I've managed to get that cap on, however this clamp is just too small, so we're going to have to see if we can find another clamp around the place. So I got this old Falcon wreck here. Let's see what we've got under the bonnet of this thing. I'm struggling to get the bonnet open though, so you know, can we just... Here we go. Alright, so I've eventually managed to get the bonnet open on the old girl, and whilst doesn't have any heater hoses, she does have some clamps on the old radiator hoses, so hopefully that'll do the trick. We'll get this one cleaned up and hopefully we can screw it down to a heater box size. Just going to cut the excess off because I don't really want that getting in my way. So just using what we got. And then we'll just kind of bend that into a shape which is round, hopefully. But there you go, we've got the heater hose capped off now on both ends. So now really all we're gonna need is a battery. So we have to find a battery to throw in this old girl, and let's see if we can fire her up again. Hey, but since we've gone to all this effort, let's not forget to fill her up with water. And she might even get a little bit of anti-corrosion in a concentrate. So there you go, got the radiator filled up with water and it's not even leaking. So we're off to a good start there. So now let's just go find a battery to throw in this thing. Alright, so we got the battery out of my old Falcon. You might have seen my old Falcon a few times on my YouTube channel. If you're not, check out in the link above. But let's make sure we get this hooked up the right way around. So clearly this lead is going to the engine, so that's going to be the earth, so that's going to be the negative connection. So the first thing we always do though is we hook the positive on first. So I'll get the positive on, and then we hook up the ground afterwards, and that's so that we don't get any spark, and we'll get the earth on. Yep, that's good. And I reckon it's time to see if this thing will fire into life. See if the keys are still where I left them. Yep. Well, she wanted to turn over, but this is a pretty good battery, but, and you heard her nearly even fire, but anyway, it's not turning over now. So let's go to get a jumper pack and see if we can make some progress here. So I got the trusty jumper pack, got the earth on the earth side, and the positive on the positive side, and then we just plug it in. All right, and we'll give that a whirl. Some idiot has left the cap on the top. She's probably choking flat out. Let's get that off and see if she'll fire up. How good is that, folks? Well, and look, if the original fuel pump's actually trying to pump 20-year-old fuel from the back of the ute. There's obviously still fuel, you can see she's red, so she's the old super squirting out there. Not squirting pretty hard, but there's fuel coming through. You can see that filter there is slowly filling up. But how's that? How's that? The old Datsun ute has just fired to life. Haven't even adjusted the carburetor. Straight from max speeding rods. She's running off the temporary fuel, and look, gold. It'd be great if this fuel pump would get a bit of fuel actually pumping through fairly harder. Just catch that fuel coming out down there. Get this jumper pack off. I must say, these little lithium jumper packs are just the best. If you don't have one, get one. Look at the size of that. This can start up to a turbo diesel V6. My Mercedes, which you see me working on, I have this as a backup to start my V6 3-litre turbo diesel in my Mercedes. See if we can get that fuel. We've got fuel pumping through from the rear tank. That is awesome. So we'll get it all plumbed up. Get it plumbed up from the rear fuel tank into the carburetor. And look, I'm thinking, do we try and drive this thing as it is? Now, for all you folks out there that don't think I give this ute the love it deserves, I've even gone and got a new fuel filter. So I'm going to chuck the new fuel filter on and a bunch of new fuel lines on before we do anything more with this precious Datsun 1500 ute. Just nick this little clamp off the old filter there for down on the fuel pump. Get the fuel filter onto the bottom of the fuel pump there. Alright folks, so let's see if she will run off of her own fuel tank. So she's running, folks. You can see I've got the fuel hooked up to the fuel tank. Now we will soon see, because the fuel in the fuel bowl will change from that yellow for the modern unleaded through to the red of the 20-year-old super. You can see the fuel level is dropping in the fuel bowl there. So perhaps she's not. I know we can see the fuel filters now starting to fill up with fuel. You can see the colour has changed to red. How's she going to run on the 20-year-old fuel? She's running, folks. Listen to that. Oh, wow. So, she's running. She's running without a temporary fuel tank. You little beauty. They're making progress, folks. The Datsun 1500 ute, she's alive. Look at that. She's running on 20-year-old fuel, 20-year-old petrol. Now I'm sure that people are out there, you guys down in the comments below, I know you're going to give me a hard time. Look, I put new oil in the engine. She does have the old oil filter. I've fixed the coolant leak. So she's got water in there. I'll put some coolant in there later on, folks. Now, big problem is she's got no brakes and she's got no clutch. But are we going to try to drive her anyway? What we're going to do now, we're going to get the air cleaner fitted up, and at the moment it's got no brakes and it's got no clutch. So we might actually have a look to see if we can get the engine running again, and we'll see if we can actually bleed the brakes, so that at least we've got a bit of a brakes maybe, and then who knows, maybe we'll even try to drive it. So let's get into doing some more wrenching on it straight away and get that air cleaner installed. So I'll just get this bracket mounted up here that we took off previously that holds the air cleaner. Be great if I had my ratchet spanners here, but unfortunately I don't. Now, I suppose someone will comment that I really should put a new air filter on. Well, I don't have one, so we're not putting one on. And I figure that an old air filter is better than no air filter. Alright, so when we installed the new carburetor, there was the additional vacuum lead that went down somehow onto the throttle linkage of the old carburetor. I'm not sure what that was actually for, but this new carburetor doesn't have it. So I'm just going to plug that lead because it somehow feeds back through a diaphragm off the inlet manifold. And I'm just going to plug it just in case that vacuum lead is just needs to be plugged up. Looks like that clamp's no good, but anyway, I'm sure that's good enough. So the ute's been out here for 2 years and there's still a bit of air in the tyres. You know, I reckon there's some money in these tyres because they're still good tyres. But anyway, they're a bit flat. So before we attempt to drive it, we're going to put some air in the tyres. Bit more. Keep going. You got to keep putting air in it till they don't look flat on the bottom. Alright, so we're going to try to bleed the brakes now. Got my lad in the ute, and he's going to put the pedal down when I tell him. Alright, push it down. Alright, and up. And down. And up. Alright, looks like we've got nothing coming through, so we're just going to have to give it a crack. No brakes. Alright, so I've tried to bleed the brakes, but I've had no luck there. So we've got no brakes. I've had a look at the clutch. No luck there. So we've got no clutch either. But I'm going to try to drive it anyway. So what we're going to do is we're going to start the engine up. We'll get it nice and warm. And then I'll just start it up on gear and we'll just drive it as it is. Here we go. Got a bit of wire to wire the bonnet down. Good enough, she'll be right. All right, so we're gonna shut down the engine and then we'll start her up in gear and let's see if we can actually drive it. But first of all, look at my friend in here. Look at my friend, there's a dead rat. I reckon this is our lucky memento. In actual fact, I reckon what we should do is we'll put him as a hood ornament. There you go, the rat's a hood ornament. That's our lucky charm. Stopped it. No, I did it. Yeah. All right, we'll try again. She's died. Woo!
It was a solid crash.
Well, there you go, folks. I gave it a solid crack. She ran. That's the first drive in 20 years. I don't know what's happened. She's cut out, but there you go. If you like it, folks, like, share, and subscribe. All right, folks, let's have a look in here. Let's see if we can work out what's gone wrong. Ah, look, she's running out of fuel. Have a look in there. She's run out of fuel. We're out of fuel, folks. The fuel bowl's empty. All right, folks. So I can see, looking at the fuel bowl, that the fuel level is really low in the carburetor. So I think what's happened here, we've just run out of fuel. So we're going to get some fuel, and let's see if we can get this ute going again. All right, so we've got a few possibilities. Either we've actually run out of fuel, which I'd say is a good thing, because as you know, it's 20-year-old fuel. So we'll put a bit of fuel in the tank. Maybe we'll throw a bit down the carburetor and wet those spark plugs. For those in the comments, chuck a comment below. Or the fuel pump actually has died. So there's only one way to find out. Let's put some fuel in the tank and let's see if we can get it running again. That should be enough. Just to get it going again, let's chuck a bit down the carb. Alright folks, so you can see when it started up before, it was obviously the fuel that I popped in the top of the carburetor. You can see it sucked through a bit of fuel from the back of the tank, so I'm going to put a bit more in the carburetor and let's try and suck through some fuel. Folks, times like this, we need to jerry rig our temporary fuel tank again. Alright, so we're back to the temporary fuel tank. We'll get that plumbed up. Alright, Right, so we've got our temporary fuel tank in there again. Let's see if we can get it running again. So we can see that's the fuel return from the tank. So I reckon that fuel pump has just died. What was left of that fuel pump has died while I was doing those couple of donuts before. But alas, we'll see if she starts pumping. But she don't look like she's pumping to me. I reckon we should drive her with the temporary fuel tank rigged up. What do you reckon? Well, there you go, folks. That's the first drive of the Datsun Ute in 20 years. We did it. Well, that's it, folks. That's the first drive of the Datsun Ute in 20 years. Gives a couple of thousand likes, and I'll get back here and I'll do some more work on the Datsun Ute. But tell me, folks, what do you want to see? Do you want to see a resto? Do you want to see the clutch fixed up? Do you want to see the fuel pump fixed up? Do you want to see the brakes fixed up? You tell me in the comments below what you want to see out of this Datsun Ute. Anyway, if you've liked this video, do feel free to like, share and subscribe. And until next time, have a good evening.